बीए पार्ट संगीत सेकंड के विद्यार्थियों का एक बार फिर से स्वागत। आज के वीडियो में हम डिस्कस करेंगे ए क्रिटिकल एप्रिसिएशन ऑफ नेथेनियल हॉथॉर्न्स स्टोरी डॉक्टर हेडगेर्स experiment. In the two previous videos, we have discussed about the writer and a short introduction of the story and a brief summary of the story Dr. Heidegger's experiment. So dear student, in today's video we will discuss plot summary and analysis of the story Dr. Heidegger's experiment. Nathaniel Hawthorne's story Dr. Heidegger's experiment presents before the readers human nature and character in its true form. Every old person wants to look young and enjoy his romantic life as long as he can. He does not become cautious of his future mishaps. So, the writer of the story concludes that human nature is essential, incorrigible. Although Dr. Heidegger proposes to his friends that he is testing the properties of water of youth, he states the actual premises of his experiment in his final warning to them before the experiment begins. He says, "It would be well that with the experiment of a lifetime to direct you, you should draw up a few general rules for your guidance in passing a second time through the perils of youth. Think what a sin and shame it would be if with your peculiar advantage." That he is curious whether human beings have the capacity to learn from their mistakes as they grow older. To this end, he has selected the participants of the experiment in explicitly for their lifetime of poor decisions, something he congratulates himself on shortly after in the text. Having selected subjects he knows to be more wicked, he then monitors for any improvements and finds none whatsoever. He concludes that the renewed vigor of youth brings all the same mistakes and decides it is not desirable. Dr. Heidegger's experimental design reveals a deep pessimism about human nature. He does not, for example, include any individuals of better character than his four friends, which might have shown different results. He asks no questions about a second youth for people who engaged in good works or whose characters were more moderate, partly good and partly bad, because he has gone to trouble to find an unwise merchant, a drunken soldier, a corrupt politician, and a promiscuous widow. It is clear he does not value a degree of diversity in his experimental subjects. However, he seems to have accepted more falling in all with the strength of the time as a universal human condition. This is hardly uncommon for Hawthorne stories for the dark romantic genre as a whole. Like his friends, Dr. Heidegger has not completely outgrown the fallings of his own past. He is, after all, still performing medical experiment on his intimates, even though this is exactly what killed his fiancée all those years. Though the text treats him as a Jovian, godlike figure and compares him to a father, time he is still only marginally better than the others. He is detached enough from the situation observed and learn without taking part, but he still learns at all other expenses. The title of the story, The Heidegger's Experiment, it is very appropriate. It is suggestive and significant because all events in the story revolves around Dr. Heidegger's experiment, which has a special significance in the story. The significance of the experiment has been made quite explicit. It is through this experiment that not only old persons can be revived to their youth, but also withered and dried up things like rose can be also made to become flesh. Sorry, become fresh. The plot of the story, the plot, the story has a compact plot. There is nothing to be diverted our attention from the main plot of Dr. Heidegger's experiment. The technique of the plot construction, exposition, climax, and denouncement remain undisturbed. The characterization, there are not merely characters in the story. The bust of Hippocrates, the Greek physician, father of medicine, and Sylvia Ward, Dr. Heidegger's beloved of long past, now in portrait form, do not play any living and active role. There are four old friends, including one lady. These characters are needed to develop the form of the story. These are the persons upon whom the experiment was conducted. The character of Dr. Heidegger is the central figure without whose existence there would have been no such story at all. Dr. Heidegger is a unique character with his unique experiment on that wonderful liquid which revived the old person to their death. The story has some lively dialogues between Dr. Heidegger and his four friends. The dialogues among the four old persons are also impressive as they present reality before the readers. The dialogues in the story helps its development. The story is written in simple English, quite easy for the readers to be understand. The writer tries the writer writes clear language. His expressions are also lucid and clear. There is no complication in plot construction. There is natural flow in the language. The humor, there is both humor and pathos in the story. There are dialogues in the story which make the readers humorous. The mad run of the three gentlemen after girl is quite humorous, but their condition becomes pathetic when they are ruined at the time of their youth and when they return to old age. After regaining youth under the effect of wonderful liquid, there is no left, then there is left no hope of their ever becoming youth. So there is the plot construction. The doctor explains the fountain of youth. He regenerates a dry pressed flower from his dead fiancée. The four drink and become younger at mature adulthood, and they renew their worst vices. At youth they become righteous. There is rising action in the story. The doctor explains the fountain of the youth, regenerates the dry pressed flower. The four drink and become younger with each drink. At mature old adulthood, they renew their worst vices. There is a climax in the story. Fighting and embracing, they break the container of the water and the fooling action. Dr. Heidegger admonishes them and rejects the water. So, this was a critical appreciation of the story Dr. Heidegger's experiment. Dear student, I think you have understood the whole story very well.